Okay, so for number 34, we've actually got quite a bit to do. Um, so, okay. Sorry, give me a second. 32 and 33. Okay, so we've actually got to find the sum, the difference, the product, the division, the composition of a number, the composition of a number, the composition of a variable, the composition of a variable, the composition of the composition of the composition, well, the composition of the composition. And then determine the domain of the first five. Um, well, actually, so determine the domain of 7 different things. So, I'm going to number them off and then we'll do one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess I could label them with letters, A, B, C, D. I guess I could get confusing. I'll number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then the domain of 7 of those. Alright, so number 1, f plus g. So f plus g is 2 square roots of x plus 8 plus x minus 5. Okay? It does say to go ahead and find the domain of the first 5, so let's go ahead and talk about that. In general, the domain of this square root is x has got to be greater than or equal to negative 8. So just remember it's a square root shifted to the left 8, and so x plus 8 has got to be greater than or equal to 0, which means x has got to be greater than or equal to negative 8. And then this is a linear function, so its domain is all real numbers. Okay. So when I think about the domain of the sum of the two functions, I remember that. Where's the pen I was using? Okay. It's the domain of where they both exist, and they only both exist for x is greater than or equal to negative 8. So I would say the domain is from negative 8 to infinity. Number 2, f minus g. F minus g is very similar. The only difference is 2 square roots of x plus 8. When you subtract an entire expression, you've got to remember to distribute your minus sign. So it's minus x plus 5. And the domain would again be negative 8 to infinity. Number 3, f times g, so the product. So the only thing that I'm going to be looking for here that you don't accidentally do is when you multiply 2 times this 2 square roots of x plus 8 times x plus 5, or x minus 5, if you just write this, then it's wrong. It's times the quantity, x minus 5, right? So in fact, I'd probably write 2x minus 10 times the square root of x plus 8. So I would distribute the 2 to this and then just move it to the front. Okay? That's probably how I would write it. But again, the domain still only exists from negative 8 to infinity. No changes there. Number 4. I don't know why it's pink. I don't know if y'all can tell that it's pink, but it is pink. Hello? I'm going to try something real quick. It really kind of bothers me that it's pink. Well, come on now. Just change colors. Just change colors. Do you not see what color? Whatever. Oh well. Okay, whatever. I give up. 4, f divided by g. Okay, so f divided by g is taking the square root 2 square roots of x plus 8 and dividing it by g, which is x minus 5. So this one always has that domain issue, x is going to be greater than or equal to negative 8. But this one now, x can no longer equal positive 5. So my domain is starting from negative 8, but leaving out 5 on its way to infinity. So negative 8 to infinity except 5. Number 5 is g divided by f. G divided by f is where we take the other one. Let's see. Yeah. We take g, x minus 5, and put that in the numerator, divided by the square root, 2 square roots of x plus 8. And so because of this, x can no longer equal negative 8. So my domain is negative 8 to infinity. 5 is okay now, because 5 just means it's 0, and 0 exists. And so it's negative 8 to infinity, not including negative 8. So the domain of the first 5, and then the composition f of g of x and g of f of x. So we're, number 6, we're finding f of g of 2. So that actually means that we're finding f of g of 2. So I'm going to go back to my functions. I'm going to first find g of 2. G of 2 is 2 minus 5, which is negative 3. So I'm going to plug in negative 3 into f, and I'm going to see what I get there. So I get 2 square roots of negative 3 plus 8, which is 5. And there's my answer. Okay. Number 7 says g of f of negative 5. G of f of negative 5, which just means g of f of negative 5. So first I'm going to plug negative 5 into g, or into f, sorry. So that's going to be f of negative 5 equals 2 times the square root of negative 5 plus 8, which is 2 square roots of 3. So 2 square roots of 3 plugged into g just means 2 square roots of 3 minus 5. So 2 square roots of 3 minus 5 is my answer. Number 8. Number 8 says find f of g of x. And this is one of those ones that I'm supposed to find the domain of. Okay, so f of g of x is where I'm taking the exterior function, which we defined to be f, and compose it with the interior function, which we defined to be g. So I'm going to start writing my exterior function. 2 square roots of something plus 8, and inside for x, an f, I'm going to replace the interior function, x minus 5. So as far as my steps for finding domain, let's not forget those. Let's do those in order. Number 1, find the domain of the interior function. The domain of the interior is all real numbers, so no issues there. Step 2, find the composition and then simplify. So the simplified version would be 2 square roots of x plus 3. That's not a 3. And so we did that. Check. Step 3, look for new domain issues. Okay, so now I've got a square root expression. So that means x plus 3 has to be greater than or equal to 0, which means x has to be greater than or equal to negative 3. Cool. Step 4, combine the two domain issues, which means my domain is going to be greater than or equal to negative 3. So negative 3 to infinity. And there we go. Again, you could just say, let me apply the domain of the exterior to the interior. X minus 5 has to be greater than or equal to negative 8. So if you add 5 over, you get greater than or equal to negative 3. Okay. Number 9. G of f of x. And find the domain. So now we're going to do g of f So my function g is something minus 5. And I'm substituting in 2 square roots of x plus 8. Alright, so as far as my steps go, step 1, find the domain of the interior function f. X has got to be greater than or equal to negative 8. So that's true no matter what happens. Number 2, do the composition. I mean, we did. There's nothing I can do, so that's it. I don't like how spaced out it is, though, so I'm going to put minus 5. I guess I could... Oh, I have those boxed and not the others, but oh well. And then step 2, do the composition simplify. Number 3, any new domain issues? We already had, the only domain issue we had was one that was already there. So there's no extra square roots or no different square roots or no fractions. So there are no extra domain issues, which means my domain is negative 8 to infinity. Alright, number 10. Number 10 is kind of fun. So number 10 is f of g of f. F of g of f of x. So that means we're going to find f of g of f of x. Okay? So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to find g of f of x first. Yeah? And we already did. G of f of x is this function right here. But I'm going to go ahead and write it using these colors. So I've got the interior function is my f of x, which is the 2 square roots of x plus 8. We plug that into g, right? And it's just minus 5. But then that's going to be the interior function of f. So I'm going to put parentheses around that in orange. And think, okay, I'm going to substitute this into my function f of x, which is this again. So in place of x, I'm going to put all of this. Okay? So I'm going to have 2 square roots of x plus 8. And there we go. So final answer, 2 square roots of 2 square roots of x plus 8 plus 3. And there you go. That's kind of interesting. Number 11. Just kidding, there isn't one. Okay, so that is through 10. Alright, I'm going to end this video here, and then I'm going to pick up with the bookwork.